Have you ever witnessed a single offhand remark ignite an entire school into a storm of controversy, regret, and unexpected heroism? Sometimes a casual joke, especially one rooted in prejudice, can spiral into a life-changing event for everyone involved. Today, you'll hear the shocking tale of a principal who thought he was being funny when he asked a black student to play violin as a joke. Little did he know he'd not only unleash a powerful response from this talented young man, but also change the fate of their school forever. Prepare yourself for betrayals, jaw-dropping twists, and the ultimate dose of karmic justice. It all began on a crisp autumn morning at Benjamin Oakwood High School, a place typically known for its immaculate sports fields. The fleeting hum of bright hallway lights, and a certain ambition that lived in the hearts of many students. The large campus, nestled in an old suburban neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia, had recently celebrated its 50th anniversary. On an ordinary day, the biggest drama might revolve around who won the latest football game or which teacher assigned the toughest homework. But one day, everything changed. Students drifted through the front doors in clusters. Some chatted about the upcoming prom, others lamented an upcoming algebra test. Yet there was an undercurrent of tension rippling quietly beneath the routine. Someone mentioned hearing Principal Harold Sanderson make an off-the-cuff remark. At first, it seemed like just another rumor, one of those sensationalized bits of gossip that teenagers often share. But as the day unfurled, more whispers confirmed it. He had apparently belittled one of the school's most reserved and hardworking students, a quiet black teen named Marcus Brown. Marcus was well-liked by most who knew him. Although not exactly popular, he had a quiet magnetism. He had transferred to Benjamin Oakwood High School 2 years prior after his mother accepted a job nearby at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Yes, the world-renowned CDC in Atlanta. Marcus had a penchant for art and reading, kept mostly to himself and rarely got into trouble, but he had never shown a particular musical inclination. The rumors said that the principal joked to a group of teachers, "Maybe we can get Marcus to play the violin at the next pep rally. It'd be entertaining to see." It was a strange remark, rumored to have an unpleasant undertone. No one quite knew the context, but something about the statement unsettled those who heard it. By mid-morning, students were abuzz. Why would Principal Sanderson single out Marcus specifically? The mention of a violin was baffling. Marcus wasn't in the band or orchestra. People started to suspect underlying racism or at least a lack of sensitivity. The principal's words felt cheap, cruel, like a performance request for no apparent reason. Even if it was just a joke, it struck many students and teachers as profoundly inappropriate. Marcus himself seemed oblivious at first. That morning, he had quietly stowed his books in his locker, adjusting his glasses as he prepared for first-period English. He kept his head down, avoiding the eyes of his peers. He sensed an odd tension, but no one approached him. It was as though they were uncertain how to address it. After all, what does one say to a classmate rumored to have been a target of the principal's questionable humor? Despite the usual hustle, the atmosphere felt muted, like a storm was about to break. Teachers pressed their lips in disapproval. Students exchanged worried glances. The overall sense in the school corridors was that some invisible line had been crossed. Even those who disliked drama found themselves itching to learn more. Marcus Brown lived with his mother, Cheryl Brown, in a modest apartment complex not far from the CDC campus. Cheryl was a single parent, juggling a demanding job as a data analyst, while also providing a stable home for her son. She had taught Marcus the values of perseverance and hard work from an early age. Before their move to Atlanta, they lived in Detroit, where life had been tougher. But despite the challenges, they forged forward, each leaning on the other for strength. Marcus found solace in the pages of his sketchbook. He had a gift for capturing moments in graphite, expressions on people's faces, the gentle arc of a tree branch, or even the drifting swirl of falling leaves. Back in Detroit, a local art teacher once told Marcus that he had magic in his pencil. Sometimes, alone in his room, he would lose himself for hours perfecting every detail of a drawing, as if the world melted away beneath the smooth lines and careful shading. At Benjamin Oakwood High School, Marcus kept his circle small. He had two close friends, Gwen, an aspiring journalist who wrote for the school newspaper, and Lucas, a track athlete who prided himself on his unwavering loyalty. Both recognized something special in Marcus. They knew he carried secret burdens, being a new kid, dealing with occasional racial microaggressions, and always feeling the weight of his mother's expectations. But they also saw kindness, an almost poetic perspective on life. That day at lunch, Gwen approached Marcus with concern. "Dude, what's up with Mr. Sanderson? Everyone's talking about it." Marcus shrugged, adjusting his glasses. "Talking about what exactly?" He apparently made a comment, Something about you playing the violin at a pep rally. People are saying it was a joke, but Gwen's voice trailed off, hesitant. Lucas chimed in, setting his tray on the table with a loud clatter. Man, that's messed up. Why you of all people? And you don't even play the violin? Marcus shrugged again. Inside, however, a slow anger ignited. I don't know, he muttered. Maybe I should just ignore it. But ignoring it wouldn't be so easy. Gwen explained how every table in the cafeteria buzzed with rumors. Teachers gave one another uneasy looks, although none had approached Marcus or offered any explanation. By then, the story had grown tentacles. Some versions claimed the principal singled Marcus out because he was black, implying some twisted, outdated stereotype. Others said it was a thoughtless remark about race and ability. Still others theorized the principal was upset with Marcus for a different reason altogether and used the violin comment to poke fun at him. Rumors rarely reflect reality exactly, yet they feed into existing biases and tensions. In this case, they exposed an unspoken truth. That Benjamin Oakwood High School was not immune to prejudice, even if it wore a polished facade of progressiveness. Marcus, seated at the lunch table, felt a swirl of mixed emotions: anger, embarrassment, and a sharp pang of vulnerability. Could the principal see him as nothing more than a convenient target for a joke? When the bell for the next class rang, Gwen and Lucas promised they'd look into what actually happened. Marcus thanked them. As he slid his backpack over his shoulder, he took one last look at the cafeteria. He felt every eye upon him, or at least that's how it seemed. Why me, he wondered, for perhaps the 10th time that day. Little did he know, the day had only begun to unravel. Principal Harold Sanderson was a tall, imposing figure with a stern face and neatly parted silver hair. He was in his late 50s, having served in the school system for over 30 years. Some remembered him as a champion of discipline. He prided himself on keeping kids in line, a phrase he often repeated during staff meetings. In the hallways, he maintained a strict, no-nonsense aura. Some students found him intimidating, others regarded him with respect or even mild hero worship. After all, under his tenure, the school had won multiple academic achievements and sports championships. Yet beneath that veneer of professionalism lay an unwavering ego. He enjoyed being seen as the one in control, the authoritative figure who could shape the destiny of hundreds of students. The notion of using humor, especially jokes at students' expense, was not entirely new to him. Some staff members had quietly complained about his sarcastic remarks over the years. But if teachers questioned his methods, he often dismissed them as too sensitive or unwilling to take a joke. When he made the fateful comment that morning, it was in front of a few of the older teachers in the staff lounge. He had been reading over a draft for the upcoming pep rally program and saw that a student performance segment was lacking. We need something interesting, he said. Then with a half smirk, he casually added, we could always have that Marcus Brown kid play the violin. That might be entertaining. Maybe he'll distract everyone from the losing streak our basketball team is on. A hush followed, and one teacher, Ms. Alvarez, tried to laugh it off. Another teacher, Mr. Caldwell, mumbled something about how Marcus wasn't even a musician, but the principal just waved his hand dismissively. It's just a joke, he said. Lighten up. A custodian overheard the remark and told the cafeteria staff, who told a group of students, who texted their friends. By the time the rumors circulated throughout the building, the message had warped into something more malicious, revealing a racial undertone that many had suspected existed in Sanderson's brand of humor. In the early afternoon, the principal found himself cornered by Assistant Principal Angela Freeman. She was younger, more progressive, and she had caught wind of the growing uproar. Sir, can I speak to you privately? She asked in a firm tone. He obliged, leading her into his office. Once the door closed, Freeman faced him. There's talk about a comment you made regarding Marcus Brown. Word on the street is that it had racial undertones. I'm concerned about the effect this is having on our student body. Principal Sanderson frowned. I said no such thing. I merely joked about having him play the violin. Are we so sensitive nowadays that we can't even make a harmless joke? Freeman hesitated. She wanted to say more, but was mindful of her position. Mr. Sanderson, whether you intended it or not, the students perceive it as racially insensitive. Marcus is a well-respected student. People are upset, and we need to address this. Address what? I'm not going to coddle a rumor. His voice was laced with contempt. I have more pressing issues than every microdrama that arises in this building. If the boy or his mother has a problem, they can come see me. Freeman wanted to press further, but she recognized the rigid set of his jaw. He wouldn't budge. As she left his office, she felt a sting of disappointment and a growing worry about the storm gathering in the halls. The principal sat behind his desk, fuming. Racially insensitive, he muttered under his breath. It's a joke. People need thicker skin. He refused to entertain the thought that his remark might have been out of place, especially given the complicated racial history of the region and the rising awareness of social justice issues among students. He prided himself on being old-fashioned, unwavering, but soon this old-fashioned pride would come back to haunt him. By the time the last period rolled around, the rumor mill had churned the story into a full-blown scandal. Some students were outraged, calling for the principal's apology. Others, uncertain or fearful, opted to wait and see how the school administration would address the issue. But to most, it appeared that Sanderson was doubling down, refusing to comment publicly. Even teachers who privately disagreed with him found themselves reluctant to speak up, especially if they were worried about job security. Marcus spent his last class of the day doodling in his notebook, unable to concentrate. His pencil slid across the page, mindlessly sketching the shape of a violin, the curves thickening into sharp angles. It was a reflection of his mood, conflicted, jagged, and uncertain. With every passing hour, the stares of his classmates grew more intense. He felt singled out, as though every moment he existed in the hallway was now under scrutiny. When the final bell rang, Gwen and Lucas caught up to him as he left the classroom. "Marcus, wait up," Gwen said, slightly out of breath. "We found out more details from Ms. Alvarez." Lucas gave Marcus a sympathetic look. Apparently, Sanderson joked in front of a bunch of teachers that you should entertain folks at the pep rally by playing the violin. Marcus clenched his jaw. "I know, but why me?" Lucas shrugged. "No clue, man. Maybe because you're quiet and an easy target. Or maybe he's just..." A sharp laugh from behind made them turn. A group of students from the basketball team had overheard them. One of the tall players, Reggie, shook his head. "You can't play the violin, can you?" he sneered. Marcus frowned. "No." "Too bad," Reggie said, smirking. "We could use a little sideshow at the pep rally." They exchanged high fives and sauntered off. Gwen glared after them. "Jerks," she muttered. Lucas placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Dude, don't let them get to you." But it was hard not to. A swirl of frustration and shame coursed through Marcus. He had never tried to draw attention to himself. Now, ironically, he was the center of the biggest controversy the school had seen in years. Part of him wanted to confront the principal directly, but another part told him to keep his head down. He had never been one for confrontation, especially against a man who held significant power over his academic fate. Outside in the parking lot, the autumn breeze rustled through the oak trees. Marcus sighed heavily. He unlocked his battered old bike and prepared for the ride home. As Gwen and Lucas said their goodbyes, promising to visit him later, Marcus pedaled away, feeling as though he carried a heavy burden on his back. The rumor had ignited more than just talk. It had begun to expose hidden prejudices that lurked beneath the surface of daily life at Benjamin Oakwood High School. That evening, texts flew between students. Social media posts popped up discussing the incident. A few students even mentioned the idea of staging a protest. Others demanded the principal to issue a formal apology. Tensions escalated. Students took sides. In the midst of it all, Marcus found himself feeling like a spotlight was shining on him, forcing him to address an issue he never asked for. That evening, Marcus sat at his desk, half-heartedly trying to sketch. His mother was working late at the CDC, so he had the apartment to himself. But focusing on art proved impossible. His mind buzzed with the principal's insulting words, the stares from classmates, and Reggie's mocking face. He pulled out his phone and began scrolling through social media. Dozens of messages had poured in. Some were supportive, but others were downright cruel. One anonymous post read, "Marcus better practice the violin, going to be front and center at the pep rally." Another read, "He's just playing the race card. This is no big deal." There were also supportive messages, "Leave Marcus alone," and "Principal Sanderson owes him an apology." But the negativity weighed on Marcus more than the praise lifted him. Then a private message popped up on his screen from a handle he didn't recognize. The sender introduced themselves as Ebony Brooks, a junior. She expressed solidarity, explaining she had faced subtle racism before and was willing to help him organize if he wanted to confront the administration. He replied with a polite, "Thank you," not sure what to make of the offer. A short while later, Marcus's mother came home. Tired from a day filled with data analysis and staff meetings, she noticed her son's tense posture. "Marcus," she asked gently, "is everything okay?" He tried to brush it off. "It's just school stuff, Mom." She set her keys down and gave him a searching look. "School stuff? You usually handle that well. Talk to me." Marcus hesitated, then explained the entire situation, the principal's remark, the rumors, and how it seemed to balloon into something bigger than he could handle. Cheryl listened intently, her brow furrowed. By the time he finished, she looked furious. "He said what? How dare—" Marcus held up a hand. "Mom, please. I don't want you making a scene at the school. It might make things worse." She took a deep breath. Marcus, you know I respect your independence. But if you ever feel discriminated against or humiliated, you have the right to stand up for yourself. And I have the right to protect you. He sighed. I know, but give me some time to figure it out. If it gets worse, we'll handle it. Reluctantly, Cheryl nodded. She made a quick dinner, though neither had much of an appetite. They exchanged a few jokes about her day at work, trying to lighten the mood. Eventually, Marcus headed to his room, quietly shutting the door behind him. There he opened an old shoebox that contained relics from a past life in Detroit. Photographs of him and his father, who had passed away from an illness 5 years ago, smiled back at him. It was bittersweet to recall those moments, but they grounded him. In one photo, his father was holding a guitar, a broad grin on his face as he tried to teach a toddler Marcus the basics of strumming. Marcus never actually learned to play, but he remembered the warmth of the music in their home. He reached deeper into the shoebox and found a scrap of paper with a phone number scribbled on it. It belonged to his late uncle, a professional violinist who traveled around the world. Marcus had never been particularly close to him, but he remembered attending one of his concerts as a child. It had been mesmerizing. The notes soared like living creatures, echoing the possibility of magic. Could he, after all, learn to play the violin? Ridiculous, he told himself. He'd never had formal music lessons, aside from basic music class in elementary school. He shook his head and carefully returned the paper to the box. Still, a spark of curiosity flickered. The principal's derisive comment about a violin had ignited something hidden. Could it be an opportunity to break the mold? To transform this humiliating situation into a triumph? The next day at school was tense. The hallways felt heavier, as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. By lunchtime, Marcus found Gwen and Lucas in a far corner of the cafeteria, talking in hushed tones. What's up? Marcus asked, setting down his tray. Gwen glanced around, ensuring no eavesdroppers. There's going to be a protest, she whispered. Some of the students, led by Ebony Brooks, are planning to stand outside the principal's office with signs demanding an apology. She wants you to join. Lucas nodded. Yeah, Ebony asked me to pass along the invite if we saw you. She thinks it'll have a bigger impact if you, the person he insulted, is there. Marcus's stomach nodded. I appreciate the support, but I don't know if I'm ready to lead some protest. Marcus, Gwen interrupted gently, this is bigger than you. It's about calling out unfair treatment. If you let it go, you give him license to keep insulting students. Lucas leaned in. She's right, man, but it's your choice. We'll have your back no matter what. Marcus stared at his untouched food. The principal's derision still stung. He resented the feeling that he had been forced into a spotlight he never sought. He also loathed confrontation. Was a protest the right move, or would it just paint a bigger target on his back? As he mulled it over, Ebony Brooks herself approached. She was a tall, poised girl with braided hair and a confident stride. Marcus, she said, her voice low enough to avoid attracting the cafeteria monitors. We need to stand up to Principal Sanderson. He's done enough damage, and this violin comment is the last straw. She placed a flyer on the table. It read, Stop racism now. Demand respect for all students in bold letters. I don't want to escalate things, Marcus admitted. She looked him directly in the eye. There's a time to be quiet and a time to speak up. If we don't do something, we're complicit. Please consider joining us. Marcus swallowed hard. He felt the weight of her words. I'll think about it, he finally said. Ebony nodded. We'll be outside his office after school. I hope you'll come. With that, she pivoted and walked away to pass out more flyers. Lucas patted Marcus on the shoulder. You can't hide from this forever, buddy. Gwen reached over and squeezed Marcus's hand. I know you didn't choose this fight, but it's here. Sometimes the fights we never wanted teach us the most about ourselves. Marcus forced a small smile, appreciating their support. He took a bite of his sandwich, though it tasted like cardboard in his mouth. Deep down, he felt a strange inner voice whispering that Ebony was right. The only question was if he had the courage to stand up. All day he wrestled with the decision. By the final bell, he still wasn't sure. After packing his backpack, he peered down the hall leading to the principal's office. A gathering of students had formed, some holding signs, others chanting softly, all under Ebony's leadership. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Gwen and Lucas were already there, scanning the crowd for him. He stepped forward, inching closer, indecision gnawing at him. Then, unexpectedly, he remembered the shoebox at home, the memory of his father strumming the guitar and his uncle's mesmerizing violin performances. A sudden realization struck him. Maybe this entire ordeal, the humiliating comment, the rising tensions, could be more than just a chance to speak out. Perhaps it was a catalyst to rewrite the narrative for himself and for everyone else looking on. Standing in front of Principal Sanderson's office, Marcus held a poster that read, "Equality for all, no more harmful jokes." Around him, a dozen other students hoisted similar signs. Ebony stood by his side, leading the chants. "What do we want? Respect. When do we want it? Now!" A few teachers observed from the hallway, uncertain whether to intervene. Assistant Principal Freeman hovered in the background, her concerned gaze shifting from the protesters to the closed door of Sanderson's office. The principal himself was nowhere to be seen. Gwen and Lucas joined the front line, chanting and pumping their fists in the air. Marcus felt his heart hammering in his chest, but he also felt a surge of adrenaline. For the first time, he wasn't just a quiet observer. He was part of something bigger. After about 10 minutes of chanting, the door to the principal's office swung open, revealing Principal Sanderson with a stern, disapproving glare. He scanned the group, zeroing in on Marcus. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. Ebony spoke first, her voice unwavering. "We're peacefully protesting your insulting remarks, and we're asking for a public apology to Marcus Brown and the student body for any racial insensitivity." Sanderson's lips thinned. "This is unnecessary and disruptive to the school environment. I'm going to have to ask all of you to return to your extracurricular activities or go home. There is no apology to be made." An angry murmur rippled through the crowd. Ebony held her ground. "The environment is already disrupted by your actions, Principal Sanderson. We won't leave until you address this." Sanderson looked at Marcus. "Is this really necessary, Marcus? You could have come to me privately if you felt offended." Marcus felt everyone's eyes on him. He cleared his throat, trying to keep his voice steady. "I've tried to keep my head down, but your joke was hurtful, not just to me, but to others who feel disrespected. I want you to acknowledge that it was wrong." Silence hung in the air for a beat. Then the principal's face darkened. "I see. Well, you've made your point." He turned to Assistant Principal Freeman. "Angela, please document the names of all students here. We'll be calling parents. We don't condone disruptions on school property." Shocked gasps echoed, but Ebony pressed on. "We know our rights, Mr. Sanderson. This is a peaceful demonstration, and we have the right to voice our grievances as long as we're not causing a riot or blocking school exits." Sanderson sneered. "I don't have time for legal debates with teenagers. Disperse now or I'll have to involve the authorities." A wave of tension swept the crowd. Some looked uneasy. Others, including Gwen, refused to budge. Lucas gritted his teeth, stepping protectively closer to Marcus. For a moment, it seemed like a standoff was imminent, but Ebony slowly lowered her sign and looked at the other protesters. "Let's hold off for now. We'll regroup. We've made our stance clear, and the whole school knows about it." She turned back to Sanderson, her voice firm. "This isn't over." Reluctantly, the crowd began to disperse, though not without leaving behind a palpable sense of anger. Marcus placed his sign against a nearby wall, his chest still tight with adrenaline. He caught the principal glaring at him. In that gaze, he sensed both fury and a flicker of fear, perhaps an acknowledgement that this was spiraling beyond the principal's control. Once outside, Ebony gave Marcus a proud smile. "You did the right thing, Marcus. Don't let him intimidate you." He nodded, though he still felt uneasy about the confrontation. Gwen and Lucas offered reassuring pats on the back. As they walked away from the school building, students whispered and pointed. Some displayed admiration, while others seemed apprehensive, as though the protest might bring repercussions. That night, the protest dominated social media. Videos surfaced, clips of Marcus speaking, Ebony chanting, and Sanderson threatening to involve authorities. Different factions emerged online. Some argued that the principal's remark was being overblown. Others demanded his immediate resignation. A few comedic memes popped up, showing Sanderson's scowling face with Moss quotes, "Play the violin or get out." The next few days at school were tense. Some students gave Marcus high fives in the hallway, lauding him for standing up to the principal. Others avoided him, afraid to be associated with someone who might incur Sanderson's wrath. True to his word, Sanderson sent letters home to the parents of every protester, including Ebony, Gwen, and Lucas, warning that further demonstrations would lead to disciplinary action. Marcus felt that internal ember reigniting, the faint idea of responding in a way that no one would expect. If the principal wanted him to play the violin as a joke, what if Marcus actually did learn to play? It sounded impossible, yet the notion tempted him. He wanted to take the insult and flip it, to show that no prejudice or ignorant remark could define his destiny. After school, Marcus pedaled his bike to a small music store he'd passed many times but never entered. Jackson's Music and Arts, located in a strip mall near his apartment. The store window boasted guitars, violins, trumpets, an array of instruments that seemed both enchanting and daunting. Inside, the store was all warm lighting and shelves filled with sheet music. A gentle melody from a demo keyboard played in the background. The man behind the counter, Mr. Wilson, a kind, middle-aged musician with salt and pepper hair, welcomed Marcus with a smile. "Can I help you find something?" Marcus hesitated. He wasn't sure where to begin. I'm interested in a violin." Mr. Wilson's eyes lit up with that particular joy that music shop owners often have when seeing a new potential enthusiast. "Wonderful. Are you a beginner?" Marcus nodded. "I've never played, but I'd like to learn." Mr. Wilson motioned for him to follow. They navigated through rows of instruments until they reached a display of violins in varying sizes. He carefully lifted one and handed it to Marcus, explaining how to hold it. The feel of the wood beneath his chin was foreign, almost magical. He drew in a shaky breath. "This is a beginner model," Mr. Wilson said, referencing a brand known for durability and decent tone for newcomers. "You can rent it or purchase it. If you're not sure you'll stick with it, renting is a safe bet." Marcus stared at the instrument. His budget was limited, but renting seemed doable. Plus, he didn't want to saddle his mother with an expensive purchase on a whim. "How much is the rental fee?" he asked. Mr. Wilson gave him the monthly rate. It would stretch his small allowance, but maybe with some extra chores or odd jobs he could manage. Marcus filled out the necessary paperwork, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. He left the store that evening, carrying a violin case in one hand, his bike in the other. At home, his mother looked puzzled at first. "A violin, Marcus?" He set the case down gently. "Yeah, I want to learn." She studied his face, the quiet determination in his eyes. "This is about the principal's comment, isn't it?" He didn't deny it. "Yes, but it's also for me. I just feel like maybe I can prove something, to him, to myself, that I'm more than what people assume." Cheryl's expression softened. "If that's what you want, I support you, but it won't be easy. Learning an instrument requires time, practice, and patience." Marcus exhaled. "I know." He opened the case, running his fingers along the polished wood. He felt a slight tremor in his hands, part fear, part excitement. The principal's mocking words repeated in his mind. It'd be entertaining to see. He was determined to transform that ridicule into a catalyst for something transformative. Over the next few days, Marcus watched online tutorials, practicing simple scales in his room. The first screeches were awful, causing him to cringe and worry he'd made a mistake. But with each practice session, the scratching diminished, replaced by the faint beginnings of melodic notes. It was slow, frustrating progress, but progress nonetheless. In private, he fantasized about playing in front of the school, showing everyone that he wouldn't be defined by a careless joke. Yet he also dreaded the possibility of failing. What if he never got good enough? What if this only embarrassed him further? Despite the doubts, he kept practicing. Each evening, for hours, he drew the bow across the strings, trying to memorize finger positions, improve his posture, and read simple sheet music he'd downloaded from the internet. His mother occasionally popped in, offering a supportive smile or a hot cup of tea, though she never lingered long enough to critique him. Gwen and Lucas overheard the conversation and joined in. Gwen's eyes lit up. "Marcus, this is perfect. Think about how powerful it'd be if you performed on the violin. The same instrument Sanderson used to mock you. It'd be the ultimate statement." Lucas nodded with enthusiasm. "Dude, you've been practicing for what, a week or two? You sure you can be ready in time?" Marcus swallowed. "I don't know, I'm still basically a beginner, and the showcase is in a month. But maybe I could learn a simple piece. Something short but impactful." Ebony squeezed his arm. "If anyone can do it, you can. I see your determination. Besides, you'll have a whole month to practice. I can even help you find resources. My cousin is a pianist. Maybe she can accompany you." A whirlwind of thoughts flooded Marcus's mind. Was he courageous or just plain foolish to even consider this? He looked at his friends, Gwen, Lucas, Ebony. Their expressions brimmed with encouragement. He took a deep breath and nodded. "Okay, I'll sign up." In the following days, Ebony helped him submit an official performance proposal for the showcase. He chose a beginner-friendly arrangement of Amazing Grace, a hymn known for its emotional depth yet straightforward melody. He reasoned that its familiarity and simplicity might make it easier for him to master in time. The moment he signed his name on the participant list, rumors began swirling. "Marcus Brown is performing at the showcase?" Students remembered the protest, the rumor about the violin joke, and began connecting the dots. Some were genuinely excited, anticipating a triumphant moment. Others were skeptical, doubting a novice player could pull off anything worthwhile. Even the faculty took notice. Miss Alvarez discreetly offered some sheet music and tips on practice routines. Other teachers quietly rooted for him, though they had to maintain neutrality to avoid the principal's ire. Principal Sanderson, for his part, apparently found out via the staff grapevine. According to rumor, he smirked when he heard it, shaking his head as if to say, "He won't last." He made no public statement, but his dismissal of Marcus's attempt was evident. That only fueled Marcus further. Each night, he practiced diligently, ignoring the call of video games or the temptation to chat with friends. His fingertips toughened, and the once screeching bow produced more consistent tones. Occasionally, he closed his eyes and tried to imagine the day of the showcase. Rows of chairs filled with peers, parents, teachers, and, front and center, Principal Sanderson. Would the principal's smirk fade to shock? Would the crowd realize the power of perseverance? Or would Marcus fail, succumbing to nerves and inexperience? These questions became the driving force behind every practice session. The more he practiced, the more he believed in the possibility of success. Meanwhile, Ebony and other student leaders organized a campaign to promote the talent showcase as a celebration of unity and respect. Flyers plastered the hallways with slogans like, "Express your gifts," and "Celebrate diversity and talent." The vibe around school began to shift from tension to cautious anticipation. Students whispered about the upcoming event, speculating about who would shine, who might falter, and whether the principal would keep his cool. Marcus kept his head down, focusing on one step at a time. He had a routine. After finishing homework, he'd practice scales and the chosen hymn for an hour or two. On weekends, he visited Jackson's Music and Arts for a quick chat with Mr. Wilson, who offered encouragement and occasional technical advice. Every squeak or missed note reminded him he was still a beginner, but glimpses of melodic beauty kept him going. As the showcase date loomed closer, an unexpected wave of support gathered behind Marcus. Students he barely knew nodded at him in the halls, offering quiet, "good lucks." Even Reggie, the basketball player who'd mocked him, gave him a curt nod one morning, albeit without an apology. Small gestures, but they hinted that perhaps more people were rooting for him than he realized. And still, in the back of his mind, he could hear Principal Sanderson's mocking tone. It'd be entertaining to see. Soon the principal would get his entertainment, but not the way he expected. 1 week before the showcase, tensions flared again. Principal Sanderson, apparently still smarting from the protest, decided to impose new regulations on extracurricular events. He demanded tighter approval processes, stricter guidelines on performances, and mandatory oversight by certain staff members. The student council, Ebony included, erupted in anger, seeing this as a thinly veiled attempt to stifle student expression. A rumor circulated that Sanderson planned to cancel the entire talent showcase if it showed any sign of becoming a political event. This cast a dark cloud over the preparations. Students worried that all their efforts, especially Marcus's, might be for nothing. Some contemplated staging another protest or petition to ensure the showcase went on. Meanwhile, Marcus's practice began hitting snags. He realized that playing Amazing Grace smoothly was more challenging than he'd first imagined. One tricky passage kept tripping him up, resulting in an abrupt squeak that grated on his nerves. Night after night, he repeated that phrase, trying to refine bow control and finger placement. But as time wore on, he found his confidence slipping. One particular night, he practiced so long that his fingertips felt raw against the strings. Exasperated, he let the violin slide to his lap. "What am I doing?" he murmured, tears prickling his eyes. For a moment, he almost believed Sanderson was right. This was a fool's errand. He was just a beginner, and maybe he deserved to be the butt of a joke. His mother, drawn by the sound of silence, peered into his room. "Marcus, sweetie, are you okay?" He shook his head, trying to blink away the tears. "I'm stuck, Mom. I keep messing up the same part, and the showcase is next week. I don't want to embarrass myself. Or you." Cheryl knelt beside him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "I'm already proud of you for trying. This whole situation, standing up for yourself, learning an instrument, this is growth, Marcus. Even if you hit a wrong note, the courage you show will speak volumes." He inhaled shakily, feeling a mix of relief and lingering self-doubt. "But what if I fail?" "Failure would be not trying at all," she said softly. "Perfection isn't the goal. Showing them that you can't be silenced, that's the real triumph." Her words resonated. After she left, Marcus wiped his eyes, took a deep breath, and started playing again. He told himself that each mistake was a step toward improvement. The squeaks persisted, but he heard fewer of them as the night went on. Eventually, the melody, though still rough around the edges, started to flow with a bittersweet clarity. At school the next day, Ebony updated him on the potential cancellation. Marcus's stomach dropped. "All this effort, what if Sanderson just pulls the plug?" She shrugged, frustration etched on her face. "We'll fight it. Miss Alvarez and some other teachers are on our side. They say the principal can't just cancel an event that's been approved by the district unless there's a major violation. But trust me, he's looking for any excuse. This news added a new layer of stress. Marcus found it even harder to focus in class. Yet ironically, the threat of cancellation made him practice more fiercely, as if he wanted to seize every second of opportunity before it vanished. On a dreary Wednesday, 3 days before the showcase, Ebony burst into the cafeteria during lunch, her eyes glowing with excitement. She waved a piece of paper in the air. "It's official," she declared loudly enough for a few tables to overhear. "The district superintendent said the showcase must proceed as planned, unless there's evidence of some extreme misconduct." A chorus of relieved cheers erupted from the tables that had grown invested in the event. Marcus felt a surge of gratitude. "So it's happening for sure?" Ebony nodded emphatically. "Sanderson can't stop us now." Gwen clapped in delight, and Lucas pumped his fist. Marcus's mood soared, yet at the back of his mind, a persistent voice cautioned that this wasn't over. Principal Sanderson was a proud man who hated to be undermined. Marcus suspected that the principal might not simply accept defeat. Something told him there could be one final obstacle before the spotlight fell on Marcus and his violin. Regardless, in that moment of reprieve, Marcus allowed himself to dream of a victorious performance, one that would echo through the halls, shifting the narrative from a cruel joke to a stirring testament of resilience. 3 more days, he thought. 3 days to prove them all wrong. Marcus arrived early with his violin case, grateful for the quiet tension of pre-show preparations. Ebony was on stage performing a final sound check with her cousin, who was accompanying a singer. Gwen was bustling around, helping with the last-minute details, while Lucas patrolled backstage, offering moral support to anyone who needed it. Marcus found a small corner backstage to warm up. He played a few scales, grimacing at every minor imperfection. He reminded himself that, after weeks of intense practice, he'd done all he could. His heart still hammered with nerves, but beneath it all was a sense of pride. He'd come this far, refusing to let fear or prejudice dictate his path. Performers went on stage one by one. A dance troupe performed a contemporary routine. A comedian told jokes. A band of aspiring rock musicians thumped out an original number that drew enthusiastic applause. Miss Alvarez even did a short piano solo, revealing a hidden talent. All the while, Marcus paced, occasionally peeking through the curtains. He spotted Principal Sanderson seated in the front row, arms folded. The principal's face was rigid, revealing little. Finally, Ebony emerged at the side of the stage, scanning a clipboard. She spotted Marcus and whispered, "You're up next." He took a deep breath, feeling his palms grow damp. Ebony offered him a reassuring smile. "You've got this." As the current act finished, a spirited tap dance number, the MC stepped up to the microphone. "Next, we have Marcus Brown performing Amazing Grace on the violin." A smattering of applause sprinkled the room as Marcus walked onto the stage, violin in hand. The spotlight felt blinding. He could barely see past the first few rows. He took his position center stage, arranged his sheet music, though he'd mostly memorized the piece, and drew in a slow, steadying breath. Silence hushed the auditorium. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, recalling the endless hours of practice, the encouragement from Gwen and Lucas, Ebony's leadership, and his mother's unwavering support. Then he raised the bow to the strings and began to play. The first notes trembled slightly, a hint of nervousness slipping through. But as he slid into the main melody, he found a delicate balance between precision and emotion. The music floated through the hall, each note weaving a tapestry of solemn grace. Even with a few minor slips, a slightly off pitch here or an uneven bow stroke there, he captured the essence of the piece, pouring his heart into every vibrato-laced tone. In the front row, he could see Principal Sanderson's expression shift, though it was hard to tell if it was surprise, grudging respect, or something else. Marcus ignored the flutter in his stomach and focused solely on the rhythm, letting the melody guide his bow hand. By the time he reached the final refrain, a gentle hush had fallen over the auditorium. Each drawn-out note felt like a quiet testament, not just to his personal journey, but to every student who'd faced ridicule, every act of courage that had emerged from adversity. In that moment, Marcus wasn't just playing for himself, he was playing for all of them. He ended on a soft, lingering note that hung in the air before dissolving into silence. For half a heartbeat, there was utter stillness. Then the applause came, hesitant at first, building into a roar of approval. Marcus exhaled, relief and pride bursting through him in a wave of emotion. He bowed awkwardly, cheeks burning, and quickly left the stage. Backstage, Gwen was waiting, tears in her eyes, clapping wildly. Lucas pulled him into a hug, Ebony patted him on the back, and other performers offered wide smiles and cheers. He felt a rush of joy and disbelief. He had done it. He'd faced his greatest fear and performed, squeaks and all, in front of the entire school community. When the showcase concluded, the audience poured into the lobby, buzzing with energy. Performers were congratulated. Groups of parents snapped pictures, and teachers congratulated students on a job well done. Marcus tried to slip through the crowd unnoticed, but that proved impossible. Ebony rushed up to him with a beaming smile. "You were amazing! Everyone was so moved!" Lucas gave him a playful shove. "Dude, you nailed it. I'm so proud of you." Gwen wiped at her cheeks. "I swear, I almost cried. Such a powerful performance." Marcus's mother, Cheryl, appeared, wrapping him in a hug so tight he thought he'd topple over. "Marcus, I can't even describe how proud I am," she said, voice thick with emotion. "You were brave, and you played beautifully." Marcus's heart felt full to bursting. Words failed him, so he simply nodded, smiling through watery eyes. He received compliments from classmates he barely knew. Even a few teachers he'd never had classes with approached to say how much they appreciated his courage. In the midst of the jubilant chaos, Principal Sanderson lingered at the back of the lobby, speaking with a few staff members. Marcus tensed, wondering if the principal would simply ignore him. But when Sanderson finished his conversation, he slowly walked over. The crowd near Marcus fell silent, sensing the tension. "You performed well," Sanderson said tersely, nodding. "You've certainly come a long way in a short time." Marcus stood straighter, meeting the principal's gaze. "Thank you, sir. I appreciate you watching." Sanderson's eyes flickered to the group of onlookers, noticing Ebony, Gwen, Lucas, and Cheryl all waiting for his next move. He gave a curt nod. "Yes, well, congratulations on your performance." Without waiting for a response, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Though far from a warm apology, that small acknowledgement from Sanderson struck Marcus as a sign that maybe, just maybe, the principal recognized he was wrong, if only slightly. Gwen made a face. "That was, something, I guess?" Lucas snorted. "Talk about a cold compliment." Cheryl squeezed Marcus's arm. "Don't let that bother you. You accomplished something far more important tonight." In the weeks following the showcase, Marcus continued to practice the violin, though at a more relaxed pace. Word spread beyond the school, and even local news outlets briefly mentioned the event as an example of student perseverance. Ebony penned an article in the school newspaper praising Marcus's courage and calling for more acceptance and respect within the school. Life seemed to settle into a new rhythm until rumors emerged that the district was conducting a covert investigation into several complaints lodged against Principal Sanderson. Allegedly, staff members and some parents had begun reporting incidents of verbal harassment and unprofessional conduct. Marcus's case had been mentioned, though it was far from the only one. As the investigation progressed, more testimonies piled up. Teachers who had felt demeaned by Sanderson's jokes, students who had been singled out unjustly for discipline, and even parents who took issue with his leadership style all came forward. The quiet, open secret of Sanderson's behavior burst into public view. At school, the tension was palpable. Sanderson seemed more distant than ever, rarely interacting with students unless absolutely necessary. He canceled certain staff meetings, avoided the cafeteria at lunchtime, and delegated more tasks to Assistant Principal Freeman. Finally, one morning, the district superintendent arrived unexpectedly. She was accompanied by two officials who asked to meet with Sanderson in private. Whispers spread like wildfire among the students. Ebony, Gwen, and Lucas stared at Marcus, wondering if this was the end of the line for the principal. By lunchtime, the news broke. Principal Sanderson had been suspended pending the results of the investigation. The gravity of it hit the school community like an earthquake. Some teachers breathed a sigh of relief, others remained cautious, uncertain if this was temporary or if he'd return. He bowed awkwardly, cheeks burning, and quickly left the stage. Backstage, Gwen was waiting, tears in her eyes, clapping wildly. Lucas pulled him into a hug, Ebony patted him on the back, and other performers offered wide smiles and cheers. He felt a rush of joy and disbelief. He had done it. He'd faced his greatest fear and performed, squeaks and all, in front of the entire school community. When the showcase concluded, the audience poured into the lobby, buzzing with energy. Performers were congratulated, groups of parents snapped pictures, and teachers congratulated students on a job well done. Marcus tried to slip through the crowd unnoticed, but that proved impossible. Ebony rushed up to him with a beaming smile. "You were amazing. Everyone was so moved." Lucas gave him a playful shove. "Dude, you nailed it. I'm so proud of you." Gwen wiped at her cheeks. "I swear, I almost cried. Such a powerful performance." Marcus's mother, Cheryl, appeared, wrapping him in a hug so tight he thought he'd topple over. "Marcus, I can't even describe how proud I am," she said, voice thick with emotion. "You were brave and you played beautifully." Marcus's heart felt full to bursting. Words failed him, so he simply nodded, smiling through watery eyes. He received compliments from classmates he barely knew. Even a few teachers he'd never had classes with approached to say how much they appreciated his courage. In the midst of the jubilant chaos, Principal Sanderson lingered at the back of the lobby, speaking with a few staff members. Marcus tensed, wondering if the principal would simply ignore him. But when Sanderson finished his conversation, he slowly walked over. The crowd near Marcus fell silent, sensing the tension. "You performed well," Sanderson said tersely, nodding. "You've certainly come a long way in a short time." Marcus stood straighter, meeting the principal's gaze. "Thank you, sir. I appreciate you watching." Sanderson's eyes flickered to the group of onlookers, noticing Ebony, Gwen, Lucas, and Cheryl all waiting for his next move. He gave a curt nod. "Yes, well, congratulations on your performance." Without waiting for a response, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Though far from a warm apology, that small acknowledgement from Sanderson struck Marcus as a sign that maybe, just maybe, the principal recognized he was wrong, if only slightly. Gwen made a face. "That was, something, I guess?" Lucas snorted. "Talk about a cold compliment." Cheryl squeezed Marcus's arm. "Don't let that bother you. You accomplished something far more important tonight." In the weeks following the showcase, Marcus continued to practice the violin, though at a more relaxed pace. Word spread beyond the school, and even local news outlets briefly mentioned the event as an example of student perseverance. Ebony penned an article in the school newspaper praising Marcus's courage and calling for more acceptance and respect within the school. Life seemed to settle into a new rhythm until rumors emerged that the district was conducting a covert investigation into several complaints lodged against Principal Sanderson. Allegedly, staff members and some parents had begun reporting incidents of verbal harassment and unprofessional conduct. Marcus's case had been mentioned, though it was far from the only one. As the investigation progressed, more testimonies piled up. Teachers who had felt demeaned by Sanderson's jokes, students who had been singled out unjustly for discipline, and even parents who took issue with his leadership style all came forward. The quiet, open secret of Sanderson's behavior burst into public view. At school, the tension was palpable. Sanderson seemed more distant than ever, rarely interacting with students unless absolutely necessary. He canceled certain staff meetings, avoided the cafeteria at lunchtime, and delegated more tasks to Assistant Principal Freeman. Finally, one morning, the district superintendent arrived unexpectedly. She was accompanied by two officials who asked to meet with Sanderson in private. Whispers spread like wildfire among the students. Ebony, Gwen, and Lucas stared at Marcus, wondering if this was the end of the line for the principal. By lunchtime, the news broke. Principal Sanderson had been suspended pending the results of the investigation. The gravity of it hit the school community like an earthquake. Some teachers breathed a sigh of relief. Others remained cautious, uncertain if this was temporary or if he'd return.